welcome to Celebrity Chatter and Things That Matter with Elijah. And that's me. I'm interviewing CJ Graham. You probably know him from Jason and Friday the 13th VI, Jason Lives, or Friday the 13th 2, Bloodlines as Elias Voorhees. How you doing today, CJ?
Good, Elias. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We got some questions today. Um, was there ever a stunt that you have done that went wrong?
Did you know that before Friday the 13th, I had never, ever done a stunt in my life?
Wow.
So every stunt I did on Friday the 13th, from being set on fire to underwater 20 feet, going through doors, walls, was the first time I'd ever done those in my life.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. that sounds pretty crazy. How did you feel if that was like your first time? You probably had a couple of mixed feelings.
Well, I had a stunt coordinator named Michael Nomad, and he kind of walked me through everything I would experience, how the water would feel when I was under. You got to remember, I was 20 feet underwater, chained to the bottom, breathing off a regulator. It's pretty secluded and scary, to be fair. But when you're 28, 29, you're invisible. You're Superman. Kind of like you right now at 11. You think you're Superman. I get it. But we can be hurt. I never really got hurt per se. I had some bumps and bruises, nothing to even talk about, nothing to report. I was very fortunate. I was when you're young, you're very coordinated. Like right now, if you went outside and fell, you would tuck and roll naturally. Now, me at my age, I wouldn't tuck and roll. I just go thump. You just hit the ground because we're older. Our reactions are not as quick as yours. But when I was younger, I was pretty vibrant. I'd only been out of the military a few years, but every stunt I did was calculated. I understood my job, and that was it. It was my job. But up until Friday the 13th, I had never considered movies or stunt work. So my very first movie, Friday the 13th, Part 6, my very first stunt or stunts were all in Friday the 13th.
Yeah. It's a good thing you did not get hurt. Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
good.
I was very fortunate. But again, when you have a stunt coordinator, their job is to take care of everybody on set.
Right. Yeah. Um, that's a cool background you have. Is that the costume from the movie or not?
It's a replica. It's probably 95% accurate, as you can tell by looking at it. It's very precise.
Yeah.
When I do conventions, I do photo ops with the fans at some of the shows, and I put on the exact wardrobe behind me, and it is accurate, screen accurate.
Wow.
So people like yourself, when you come around the corner to get ready for that big photo op with Jason and wardrobe, most people stop and they're just completely stop and stare for a moment because it's like walking on the set of the movie in 1986.
Wow.
I'm still 6'3", I'm still 250, I'm still ugly. So the hockey mask just, hides my ugliness, and off we go.
Yeah, I remember at Monster Mania Con, Pennsylvania. A memory that I will never forget is it was the last day. It was the third day. It was Sunday, and I was eating breakfast at the bar, and you walked past and you tapped my shoulder on the opposite side you were walking, and you tapped my shoulder, and you did not look back, and you kept walking, and you hold the peace sign down as you were walking away from me, and I was like, yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, when we're at the shows, like Monster Mania is a great show, good example. When we do wardrobe there, I get a chance to see fans like yourself, and then I get invitations to be on shows like yours, and I try to embrace as many as I can. But when you get to see the fans, I wouldn't be here. I mean, let's go back to what I said earlier. I believe you said you're 11.
Mhm.
You did this movie over 3 decades ago, over 30 years ago. Your mom and your dad weren't even probably born yet. And now we're talking to you, and I've talked to people older than I and younger than you. The last show I did was a show where I had an 8-year-old come up to me and was so excited to meet Jason. 8 years old. So the
Wow.
yeah, the iconic image is just carried over, and it's a it's an honor. Just so you know, it's
Yeah,
something that
I
you
bet.
unexpected that 3 decades later people would still be talking about Friday the 13th and Jason and
Yeah.
myself, C.J. Graham, or my friend Kane Hodder, Derek Mears, or the other few gentlemen that have had the opportunity to play Jason.
Yeah. It's a huge like passing the torch type of thing. It's an honor, I bet.
Yeah, but Kane keeps trying to take the torch back from all of us. I got to talk to him about that.
uh, do you have a funny or crazy behind the scenes story?
Well, I will tell you, Michael Noman, the stunt coordinator, was pretty radical. He's a California guy, blonde hair, and at the bar he'd jump up on a table pretend he's surfing. So he was different. And, he was very personable and stuff. But we had a good time. You have to remember, we shot all night long. So, it was dark, quiet, sometimes cold, sometimes wet, more times wet. So from an experience factor, it was interesting. But I will tell you the first, very first scene I was in, it'll always be my favorite. As you know, movies are shot out of sequence. But my very first scene in the wardrobe was the scene where Jason steps into the profile, turns to the motorhome, tilts his head just a little, and then starts walking towards it. That's my very, very first scene as an actor, stuntman in the movies.
Wow, that's got to be a famous scene right there, then.
Yeah, for me, I'll always remember that.
Yeah.
That's one of those things when people say, "What's your favorite scene?" That'll always have to be the favorite one.
Yeah. And it must have been so hard to walk, like, and turn
Really, I
your
mean,
head the right way.
great question, because if anybody out there would just stand up and put one hand over their eye like this and close the other eye, you cannot see 6, 7, 8 feet in front of you. You cannot see to the left or to the right except 6 or 7 feet in front of you. So you're walking every time you take a step. You really don't know where your foot's being put. You don't know if there's a rock there, a stick there. So you're always walking in a very formulated way, like a soldier, like I was ex-military. And with that, it was very difficult. So you never know, and you have to be extremely careful when you're working with actors and actresses because you could hurt them. And
Yeah.
since your vision is conservatively 60% gone, that really, really is up to you to make sure that you don't hurt anybody. It
Wow.
would be terrible if you did, not to mention that these people have faith in you that you won't.
Yeah. You got to be careful. That's
Yes.
crazy. How did you get your role as Jason?
I was lucky. I mean, I was a general manager of a nightclub in Los Angeles. So I'd originally moved to Los Angeles to look at LAPD or the sheriff's department. I was running a nightclub. Thursday nights, I had a hypnotist on stage, and it was a different off night compared to the weekends that were always packed. The club was 15,000 square feet, so we get about 1,800 people there on a weekend each night.
Wow.
But the hypnotist would get several hundred on Thursdays, and he would have these subjects on stage that went under, and he would give them suggestive thoughts and things that they were comfortable doing. He decided to bring in a company to videotape his show so he could put together a VHS back then for promotional purposes. The company he used was called Real Effects, REEL, Real Effects. Just happens Real Effects also was the special effects company that did part 4 with Ted White special effects. So
Wow.
they suggested to the hypnotist Jack to put a breakaway screen behind the subjects and put CJ's big butt in Ted White's wardrobe and have him break through the screen and scare the subjects. The rest is history. I did it, and Real Effects kept saying, "We're going to cast you. We're going to cast you." And I thought they were nuts. Several months later, I got a call to meet Frank Mancuso Jr., go to Paramount Studios. He was a senior executive and
Wow.
producer of Friday the 13th. And I mean this, the rest is history. So luck prevailed, but I
Yeah.
also had to produce.
That
So,
that's amazing. That's that's crazy that something like that would ever happen.
right.
It's
And it is,
definitely luck.
when you think about it, we all work hard, and sometimes you don't get the job even if you're the best. It does happen, folks. Sometimes you get the job pure luck, which I did, and I had the skill set. But once I got the job, I had to deliver. So always remember that. Sometimes you get it for qualifications, sometimes you get it because you're lucky. But once you get the gig, you got to do a good job.
Yeah, you have to. Or else. Um, what are some of your favorite memories on set of uh, Jason?
Well, I think going back now, as it's become so iconic, I remember everything. I was very fortunate. Back in those days, we didn't have all these iPhones and cameras, and we had a little 35 millimeter clicker that was made out of cardboard. You took it down to the pharmacy store and dropped it off, and they'd print it for you and make negatives, they were called. So I was fortunate. I had a lot of them, and the two young ladies that did all the wardrobe, I had them taking pictures all around the set for me for my own personal usage. But now that I've got that, it's kind of neat because I have all these behind the scenes photos. And same thing I did with Highway to Hell when I played Hell Cop with Chad Lowe and Christy Swanson. So I have a lot of behind the scenes photos that I took. It was just something I thought, why not? What have I got to lose? It's a memory, and I did it.
Yeah, good. And we were on a set of a movie a few months ago called Blood and Breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably nothing too huge, but it's a start. It's an independent film, and we took so many pictures. It's crazy.
And and you just said that it's an independent film, kind of like Vengeance. I did Vengeance 1 and Vengeance 2, playing Elias Voorhees, Jason's father. But you never know. It was an independent film, and who knows iconically if it's going to pick up. It might take 10 years. Do you know that Highway to Hell with Hell Cop, when people find out I played Hell Cop, because not everybody knows that I played Hell Cop, but when they find out on my table and find pictures, they're like, oh, you were Hell Cop? I love that movie. Well, Hell Cop did not get a national distribution in 1991. The company that produced it and shot it went bankrupt. It sat on the shelves of what's called a library until United Artists and MGM bought the
Wow.
library and then put the distribution out, where now you can go to Walmart and buy a Blu-ray. Now
Mhm.
that people are seeing it, they're like, it's one of those films iconically that could have been something back in the 90s and could have had a heartbeat still today. But you never know. Like you just said, you did that film, it was an independent. You just don't know what could happen in 5 years, 10 years. It
Yeah.
could just take off.
Yeah, that'd be definitely super cool. What was your most challenging stunt that you've done in Jason?
The most challenging for me was the underwater scene. Let's remember I'm in a 20-foot deep diving pool,
Mhm.
like you see in the Olympics. I'm chained to the bottom physically. They put black tarps all the way around the blueness because it's shot at night. Go back to what I said about you can only see 6 feet in front of you, maybe 10 feet. I'm underwater and I have a real chain around my neck. They put two center blocks down at the bottom. So every time I would go to the top and look at the tape, the divers would take me back down and put me in the same spot. So I was standing on two center blocks with a real chain around my neck, holding me down. So you signal for air. This is the signal. And they would just come in and put a regular in my mouth and clear it because I couldn't see anybody. All I could do was hear the camera, click, 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 click. So I knew they were running. But I would consider that the most difficult. I was there all night long. Uh, there was no way if I ever really got in trouble or that the safety divers were mad at me, if they left me, that I would be able to get out because I have gloves on. It's a real chain. If you look real close in the pictures, you can see it's screwed on. So think about being 20 feet underwater, no more air. You're trying to get your gloves off. You're struggling to get the chain. You're not really sure exactly where the link is because you can't
Wow.
see. And you still got 20 feet to get to the top of the water. So I think that was the most chilling. But at the same time, I'm young. 100% confidence in my safety divers, Michael Nomad and his crew he brought in. But would I do it again? No.
Well, that sounds super scary right there. Just being underwater. That it's crazy.
That is, it's like, it's a form of being in the military. And I was infantry. You've got a platoon around you, and the folks around you are willing to give anything and everything for you. They have your six, we call it, your back. And those safety divers, those stunt coordinators, they got your back.
Yeah. I like it's a good way to describe them. Yeah. Which kind of brings me to my next question. What type of military were you in? Like Navy, uh, pilot, whatever.
Well, let's start with how old I am. I'm old. I got the last 2 years of Vietnam, 1974, 1975, and then went into the first 3 years of the Cold War through 78. I was in the U.S. Army. I was called 11 Bravo 20, which is infantry. So the front lines, when I was younger, when I was still a private in a PFC, I actually humped a radio. I was an RTO operator for my lieutenant at the front of the platoon, calling in support and stuff. And then when I got to be a sergeant, I became a platoon sergeant. As I indicated, I went in at the end of Vietnam, and everybody was getting out. And so we were short E6s and E7s. I was an E5 sergeant, which is 3 stripes. And I ended up taking over a platoon of 30, 31 troops because we had no E7s. They had all gotten out of the military. They had done their service in what we call ETS, estimated time of service. So I enjoyed it. I was very proficient with weapons and M16s and, M60 machine guns, 50 cals and 45s and
Crazy.
wars, and nothing that does you a bit of good in civilian life, except you're taught honor, integrity, and leadership.
Yeah. My mom's dad, her stepdad, did the same thing. He would call in support, but I don't think he was ever in a war. Um, and then my dad's stepdad, he was in the army, and then my great grandfather was a Marine. And his first day was into a war immediately, and he took a grenade to the leg and survived. And yeah, Marine. One of
So, so I'm going to tell you a funny story about Marines, okay? Because I'm Army. So what am I going to do? Rag on Marines, right?
them.
So I have a T-shirt that says Army. Even the Marines need heroes. But I will tell you, I do give Marines a hard time when they come to the conventions. First thing I say to a Marine is, "Oh, you were in the Navy." They hate that. I realize there's not a Department of Marines. They are the Department of the Navy. But they're Marines. They're infantry, most of them, like and I like to give them a hard time. And most Marines will tell you, "Well, no, they're just Uber for us." Or the boys will say, "Well, I work in the men's department." But I can't do it without them. When I'm done razzing them during a convention, I always thank them for their service.
Yeah.
Any soldier that you see that you thank for their service that's appreciative, if I ever see somebody that's a Vietnam era vet, and we're talking Vietnam was 1960 to 1975, long window.
Oh,
We
yeah.
only remember 67, 8, and 9. Those were the most critical years when we had 500,000 soldiers and people dying daily. But whenever you see a Vietnam era vet or a Vietnam vet that served in Vietnam, I always tell them welcome home. Big deal to them because they never got the standing ovation as all military personnel deserve. It was a misunderstood conflict, and it wasn't very favorable at home.
Yeah.
But the soldiers let her do their job.
Well, thank you for your service.
So
Yeah.
I
Thank
did my
you
job.
so much for your service.
Do you know that, just a tidbit? I don't know if you knew this, but did you know that Steve Dash, who was Jason Part 2, was in the Army. In 65, he was in Germany.
Ah, cool.
He's part of the Vietnam era. And he's passed, of course, but I don't know if you knew that.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah.
It's cool.
There's quite a few people. Do you know, have you ever met Tom Savini?
I don't think so.
Tom Savini is a special effects guru who did all of Friday, most of the Friday the 13th and stuff beyond that. He's very well known for special effects, and you will see him at shows if you look him up after we talk. Tom Savini was a combat photographer in Vietnam, and it's
Ah,
unfortunate to say that. That meant he photographed and saw a lot of injuries, and of course, then he went into special effects, and I would say, unfortunately, he probably saw a lot of those effects in reality.
yeah. Well, uh, it's better than fighting, I guess.
Yeah, there. Unfortunately, it stays in your brain. You have to
Yeah.
what's called departmentalize.
Yeah. You're gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks for asking about my military.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
very proud of being in the military. My son's most important thing to me, but being in the military is right there.
Yeah. I always love hearing war stories. I think it's cool. It's in my family, really. Everybody's always telling me.
Well, yeah. Look at your great great grandpa in the Marines,
Yeah.
and I mean, you are, as we call them, military brats in one form or another. But you know what? Your grandma and people that and your stepmom's brother, everybody that served, they served too. When a soldier's in the military and their families at home, sisters, brothers, cousins, those folks are serving too, just so because they're worried about their service member that's either on the front lines or just overseas in Germany, Japan, Korea, protecting.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy what people put their lives into to risk it for other people. It's a good thing. I love it. And speaking of fighting, who would win in a fight? Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees?
So I'm going to answer that with this. Real men, we use a machete, not an Outback steak knife.
Yep.
Any questions?
I would definitely agree. I would just tell you backstory of how I said that question. I paused in between each couple of words. It's my grandfather. Sometimes I sleep over his house, and he has a hot tub, and we'll always like think of like horror movies and what would happen if like two killers fought each other, and we make up like a whole battle scenario.
Right.
And we would say like Michael Myers versus Jason, like I just did, and I would say, well, I think Jason would win because he uses more different weapons, and Michael Myers only uses that one knife.
We call it an Outback steak knife.
Yeah, Outback steak knife. I'm gonna start saying that now.
Now, when I see Tyler Maine or any of the guys that played Michael Myers, I always razz them just like I razzed Marines. I just razz people for fun. I would never hurt anybody's feelings intentionally, but
Yeah.
I wore a T-shirt to a convention one time with a picture of Michael Myers on the front, and on my back of my shirt it said "Real men use a machete."
Yeah, I want that shirt.
I like to play with it and have fun with it. I'm very fortunate to be one of the four musketeers, meaning Leatherface, Jason, Michael Myers, and of course Freddy.
Yeah.
So I call it the Four Musketeers, and we got to be fortunate of the icons that we've been fortunate to portray and become over the last 40 years, if you go all the way back.
Yeah. It's I like that. Four Musketeers. I
Four
like
Musketeers.
um if you could be in any movie you would want to, which movie would you want to work in the most?
Hmm. Can it be? You know what? I remember a movie called Platoon back in
Yeah.
the 80s, and it always stuck with me being ex-military to represent uh, people of that nature and tell their story through an actor in a film of that caliber. I think would be not just honor, to me, but it has a special place in my heart because I don't think military, right, wrong, or indifferent, is appreciated as much as it should be in totality.
Yeah, I've always loved those war movies. I always thought they were really cool. Learning history, like history, is one of my favorite subjects. Specifically, the wars. Learning about like what types of gun they use and how they invaded. I just thought that was interesting to me during history class. Um, Stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you that if they don't teach history, I don't believe like much, to be quite honest. But I wish they did more. You can get it on Discovery Channel and really get in some in-depth
Yeah.
history. And I think it's important to remember history, no matter how good or how bad it is, so that we don't repeat it accidentally or stupidly. So I think it's important. They should teach more than they do, so we can
Mhm.
understand things a little differently and try not to take the same path at a later date.
Yeah, that's what my mom always says. History is good because it teaches you not to make the same mistakes that other people did.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, Now we have this game 100
Okay.
questions.
All
And we
right.
have 100 questions. I'm not going to ask you 100 questions, but you're going to pick a number 1 through 100.
13.
Oh, okay, right away.
See
I like
how
it.
fast 13.
Yeah, good.
And I
Uh,
like, how many do I get to pick?
we'll see just based off of time, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
My next one is 6.
Okay. If you could switch bodies with someone, Freaky Friday style, who would you pick?
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, he's bad. He's a good looking man, and he's had a good career. Had a couple
Yeah,
bumps along the way, but he got up and he's doing well.
yeah, I like it. And you said 6.
Number 6.
Um, what is one bucket list item that you still need to check off?
Bucket list item. Like to win an award for a horror movie icon to be received, because they do have awards now for scary movies. Not just the word horror, but we're talking movies of that nature. I think it'd be kind of neat to win a universal award just for contributing to the type of things that we did back in the 80s.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
My next one is number 19.
19.
The reason for that is the next one after that will be 86, 1986. Get it? That's when the movie came out.
Yeah, I
All
like
right.
it. What is your go-to excuse to get out of plans?
Wasn't my fault. No, I'm just kidding. I don't really, you know what? I will be the first person. I don't make excuses. I've always been pretty honest. Um, if I'm committed, I'm committed. If I'm not interested, I'll be honest. I'm not interested. But if asked, I still will proceed. Um, Especially when it comes to the Friday the 13th. What an honor to still be talking about it 30 years later.
Yeah.
So I'm in a very special place to be even considered, like you want to even talk to me. So I do make sure that I try not to make excuses, but
Mhm.
every once in a while I make a hiccup. I'll make an excuse. I had a podcast last week, same day, same time. I messed it up. I was late.
Yeah.
Forgot about it. I was out doing the horses and I forgot all about it. So I did a quick video and sent it to him to send to his viewers, apologizing for my error, so they wouldn't be disappointed in him that he failed to get CG on his show. So I told him anytime he wants to redo it, we'll do it again. But it was my mistake, my error. I'm pretty big about that. Like I said, I go back to honor, integrity. I don't make a lot of excuses for my own stupidity. I just step
Yeah.
up and take the bat, so to speak.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
like
number 86.
86. What is your biggest goal in life? If not getting an award, isn't it?
No, my biggest goal, I'm 67 years old.
Wow.
90% of my life is gone. I've got 10% left, and that's a fair assumption. Most people pass around 70 to 74, let's be honest. I have been very fortunate, very successful, and very honored. So I've made all of my commitments and been very fortunate with everything I've done. Now I just like to spend a little extra quality time with my family for memory purposes.
Hmm.
But I've done everything. I've been very fortunate, and I say that with pride because you have to understand. My dad died when I was 3. My little brother, my mother raised 2 boys on Social Security in the 60s. My little brother died in 1984. He was 24. I have a daughter that OD'd at 35 about 4 years ago.
Wow.
So when people start kind of caving in, I remind them everybody's been hurt or everybody is damaged along the way, but it's how you get back up.
Yeah.
So I've never hit the ground. I'm still going strong. 10 more percent. I'm going to keep doing what I can do until it's over.
Good.
All right, you ready for my next one? Number
Uh,
9, because the movie was released in August, the ninth month.
okay. Well, first,
Oh,
I want to say sorry for all that, and we have a question from the comments.
okay.
Uh, what's with the Chip and Dale behind you?
So, as I said earlier, I've had a great life. 1987, I was with Chippendales in Culver City. Um, and I had a good fun doing it. And so I kind of kept that under wraps for a lot of years as an executive in casinos. When I retired 7 years ago, my wife said, "Well, what's the big deal?" So that happens to be my cuffs and collars and one of the prints that I did back in 1987 when I was with Chippendales in Culver City. Which is the original Chippendales way back where. Unfortunately, that's where I met and worked for a gentleman named Steve Banerjee, who was found or going to be found guilty, unfortunately, of I believe it was murder, killing somebody in New York at the New York Chippendale before he hung
Oh,
himself in the jail in Los Angeles before he was sentenced.
wow, crazy. Uh, what was your favorite kill in Jason?
My favorite kill is not a bloody kill. My favorite kill is where I took the sheriff and bent him backwards and broke his back. And the reason for that, there's no blood, there's no guts, but can you imagine the power and force it would take to pop somebody like that? I mean, it's beyond scary.
Yeah.
So I really like that one the best. I mean, pulling a head off and pulling a heart out, that's all gory, but that's just one of those scary ones that somebody can have that much power to break
Hmm.
somebody in half like a chicken bone.
Right. Yeah, you could tell Jason is very strong, like you. And we'll do one last question from
Okay.
the 100 questions, and then I have one more question at the end. So, what's your final number?
Mm, 1. And the reason for that is the movie came out August 1st, 1986. That's where I got all my numbers.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. 13, 1986, 1.
And 6 for part 6.
Yeah, wow. What is one thing that you cannot live without?
That I can't live without? My family.
I like it. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I gotta be fair. My family, they, as you get older and you get more mature, and you had good and bad, the only thing you hopefully can still depend on, and in most cases you can, it's not always perfect, but most cases you can, are your stones, which are your family.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's a great answer. My final question is, do you know any sign language?
I know, thank you. And the reason for that is, I think Michael taught me that, thank you, because when occasionally someone comes to my table, um, when they talk through an interpreter, I always want to say thank you respectfully back to them
Yeah,
after we do our pictures.
yeah, I like it. Is there any sign language you would like to learn?
Well, I think thank you, please, and thank you are probably the most two important words in any language.
Yeah,
I don't care if it's just English, Spanish, French. Please and
Mhm.
thank you are I think the two most important. I'm very heavy on respect and honor, as you probably know, integrity, as you figured out. I don't have all the answers, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
I always tell people I have a PhD in common sense,
Yeah. I like it.
right next to my honorable discharge from the military.
Yeah. So please is just like this.
Just like rubbing your chest like you're indigested.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen? You remember that commercial on TV with the purple when you have a tummy
Yeah.
ache? It goes when you're
Pepto,
indigested. Is that
yeah.
the same thing?
Pepto Bismol. Yeah.
That's it. Okay, guys.
Yeah. Do you want to learn how to say Friday the 13th?
Okay.
Yeah. So you would go uh, basically just like this. Your pointer finger and thumb are touching, and then you would just spin it around in a circle.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
right-handed. So, would I do it this way?
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Friday, and then for 13, you're gonna have your finger like this, basically like a three.
I don't think my fingers will move like that. There you go. They're a little old. So let me loosen them up here. Okay.
And then you're just
Yeah.
gonna your two top fingers. You're just gonna point them down and up, down and back up. 13. So you would do Friday the 13th.
So I'm not going to be shot by a gang doing gang signs, am I? Oh,
No.
I'm serious. That's not. That's a serious question. People,
Yeah.
when they see folks that are talking with their hands, they really think they're throwing gang, and people have been hurt accidentally for that. That's why I say that. I mean, it's terrible that no, they don't. That's something you just said. Something that's interesting. That would be something we could teach in school, just a little bit. Not a lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
But
know.
thank God, me and my dad have never been hurt for throwing up gang signs.
Well, I've read articles about that. So I mean that with sincerity. That people just they don't they see somebody in a car and they're talking and don't realize they are talking, and then don't realize how fortunate they are that they can speak and hear, and somebody else doesn't have that, and they've learned to communicate other ways. So it's a true thing. So, but
Yeah.
very cool.
But thank you so much, CJ, for your time doing this interview, spending your time doing this for the fans. And thank you so much, Hope, our wonderful interpreter, for spending her time for the deaf community
Thank you.
doing this.
Anna,
uh,
thank you.
and yeah, spending your time doing this. And is there a message you'd like to give to your fans, CJ?
The most important thing is thank you for being fans, and thank you for allowing me to become so successful in this iconic image. Totally unexpected, appreciated, and I hope I keep myself in check. That I'm always appreciative of the fans, because I wouldn't be here without the fans. Period. There's no ands, ifs, and buts about that. If my fans, our fans, the Friday the 13th fans weren't so loyal, I wouldn't have the pleasure of still talking about this 30 plus years later. So thank you very much to everyone.
You couldn't be here without me.
It's a fact. It's a fact. No, you're right. I'm serious. I know people think, oh, but if you sit down and think about it, you, the fans, your listeners, have allowed me to still be recognized and acknowledged 30, what, 5 years, 36 years later. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Both of you, thank you so much again. Thank you.
Hey, I got a question before we shut off. And this is have you ever heard of a movie called Harry and the Hendersons?
Yes, yes, I have.
Okay, I'm going to get up. I want to show you something that a fan made me and sent to me from
Uh oh.
the
It's
last
freezing.
show. So I'm gonna get up and start.
I think you're muted, CJ. Uh oh. Oh.
Oh, wow.
Wow. CJ, you're muted, so I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You're muted. Can you turn your mic on?
All right.
Yeah, there we go.
Did you see Harry? That
Yeah,
is a
that's
full-size replica, like it's like this of
Yeah.
Harry.
That's crazy.
A fan at the last show made for me, custom, and mailed it to me. I just got it 2 weeks ago.
Wow. That's
Isn't it beautiful?
yeah, it's beautiful.
Just for being Jason.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I appreciate you very much.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.